Southwest Vermont Union Elementary School District Board of Directors meeting. And I'd like to start with inviting everyone to rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the second item on the agenda is the reorganization of the board and appointment to committees. And so I'm looking for a nomination for chair. Is there a nomination for chair?
I nominate Chris for chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I third it.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, if not, nominations are closed. And do we wish to elect by acclamation? Is that okay with everybody? Just by raise the hand. Okay. All in favor of Chris being chair of the board, SVUESD board, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
I'll abstain. Well, thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. So that brings us to.
Glenn is here.
He's connected
Oh,
up.
great. Excellent. Hello, Glenn, how are you?
Can you make sure he can unmute? Is your name?
So at this point, nominations are in order for vice chair of the SVUESD Board of Directors. So I open the floor for nominations for that, please.
I would be interested if.
I'll nominate Sam for that.
I would second. Yeah, great. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we shall vote by acclamation. So all those in favor of electing Sandy Foster as vice chair of this board of directors, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Motion carries. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy. Excellent. And now nominations are in order for the clerk of the SVUESD Board of Directors. I would nominate Jeff.
And I would second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations? I do like how we've officially skipped over asking whether anyone accepts the nomination. I like that.
So like 5 of us.
So are there any other nominations for clerk? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of electing Jeff as clerk, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Glenn. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay, very good, and it passes. Congratulations, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Chris.
All right, excellent. So that wraps up. So we do need to nominate 2 reps to the SVSU. I would entertain a motion to table that until our next meeting. Just tonight, this very night, we received notification that we have 3 vacancies from this board. And as per statute, we have 30 days to fill those. So we'll be coming back for our April meeting in 28 days. So we can use this month to carefully consider who else to appoint to the board. And once we have a full slate of representatives to the board at that point, I would like us to elect representatives to the SVSU, as well as to appoint folks to committee assignments. So again, that's simply how I envision things. It requires a motion from the board and action from the board to make that happen. So I would entertain a motion to table the SVSU elections.
I motion to
Thanks.
table that.
Thanks, Sandy. Do we have a second on that?
Mm-hmm.
We'll call Christelle. Any discussion on tabling the motion?
Are we doing an SVSU board meeting this month?
Second,
Yes, there will be one.
So we have to have somebody represent. I mean, I was on it last time with.
Jake.
Yep.
And Scott too, right?
Yep, Scott, 'cause we had 3 reps.
Okay.
I think Glenn did it too.
But Glenn is,
And me.
MAU.
Glenn is the SVSU rep.
guys, just as a point of reference there,
Mhm.
I am the SVSU rep for MAU, so I guess you can take me out of contention here to make it easier and more available.
Yep. So I'm gonna ask.
Did you catch that?
I did, yeah, Glenn, thank you. So I'm gonna turn to Assistant Superintendent
Okay,
Laura
thanks.
Boudreau and Director Gordon. Any recommendations for this board in terms of what to do with the SVSU?
I mean, I think as a board, we can do continue in the same standing chair. The people that are there until April meeting, which would be you know,
So-
appropriate, I think.
Okay, so let me phrase it like this then. I would entertain a motion to appoint Jeff and Christelle to act as pro tem reps to the SVSU pending our April meeting. A reason, anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Excellent, Jeff. Thank you. Is there a second to that? We'll call Christelle. Great. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of appointing Jeff and Christelle as our pro tem representatives to the SVSU, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that carries. So we will come back in April to elect an official
I
SVSU.
prefer to just leave vacant to help with the quorum issue.
Yes, so we don't have, so I don't believe there's a policy meeting coming up. There are no more negotiation meetings scheduled, because that's been dealt with. Superintendent Evaluation Committee, we have some time as per policy. And that just leaves facilities, but I think we can play with that too. So I think we're okay. I think we can move on from there. Great. So that brings us to two other pieces of business in terms of the reorganization. This board needs to authorize the chair and vice chair to approve off-cycle warrants. So in the event that we come in the event that a month passes when we don't have a meeting, we still need to be able to sign those warrants without board approval. So I would entertain a motion to indeed.
That's item A,
Okay,
that she just
Thank you.
needed authorization for like warrants is item B, 2B.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start with 2B. Good, that's where I started. So I would entertain that motion for authorization to the chair and vice chair to approve off-cycle warrants, please.
I'll make the motion for the chair and vice chair to approve off-cycle warrants.
Thanks, Jeff. Can we have a second for that, please?
I just wanted to ask.
Second.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, of course, Christelle.
So what exactly, like, what's an example of that?
So we don't have, we typically don't meet in February, for
Mhm.
instance.
Yeah.
Bills still need to be paid, and so it will then fall upon either the chair or vice chair to come in and sign those, as opposed to Director Gordon circulating the packet for us all to sign, which is what I typically feel.
Yeah, so even tonight's warrant has everything from February in it too. So the whole board will eventually see, it's just this interim timeframe that we need authorization to be able to release payments.
Okay.
And that's for standard stuff, nothing above and beyond, like, $1 million add-on to the school.
No.
It's day-to-day operation.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to authorize the chair and vice chair to approve off-cycle warrants, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries as well. Now we're gonna go to 2A, which calls for us to figure out the procedure for executing contracts. So the legal reference here comes from the Vermont State Statutes Annotated, Title 16, subsection 563-16, which is the power of school boards, and it reads as follows. The chair or any person designated whose appointment is recorded in the minutes of the board may execute contracts on behalf of the school board. I'm going to read to you what I have in front of me here. Designees are identified in the current version of the SVSU Financial Procedures Manual on the SVSU website. And annually after town meeting, each board meets to reorganize and take action to authorize the superintendent or his or her designee to execute contracts on behalf of the school district and the supervisory union. These contracts include purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, and other contracts arising affecting the routine operations of the school district or supervisory union. The designees authorized to sign include the following: assistant superintendents, the director of student services, the director of human resources, the director of curriculum, the director of finances, and the director of facilities management and operations. So I would entertain a motion to authorize the executing of contracts as just represented, as ensconced in VSA 16-563. Thank you. Okay, Christelle, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of authorizing the execution of contracts as described, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and that carries as well. So that satisfies agenda item 2. We'll turn to agenda item 3 for public comment. So Director Gordon, is there anyone online participating from the public?
No.
Okay, great. So, now's the time for public comment, if anyone wishes to make any public comment.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Munlin, I'm representing Bennington Cares, and I thought it was about time for a little bit of an update as we go into the spring. Just this week, we're launching a new initiative, and we are reaching out to the further community with it. One of the things that both principals told us is that they would be greatly benefited, as with the teachers and students, if there were more chaperones available for field trips. I mean, we're all educators, we know how beneficial field trips are for students' learning. And so this week, we're a program that we're calling Day Trippers. We are providing information to people, offering a couple of information meetings. One is tomorrow night from 6 to 7, and another one is Saturday morning from 10 to 11 at the UU Meeting House on School Street, 108 School Street. And we invite anyone who's watching tonight or who watches this later to come if you'd like to find out. It's basically a way for those of us in the community to accompany our students and teachers on field trips. We're getting some good reaction to it, and it should go into effect now when the school, field trip season really goes into full swing. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. And of course, as the spring is coming, we're gearing up for two of the things that we also did last year. One of them is really looking at ways to honor our teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week that comes up in May. And the other is to start up again, now that the weather is starting to change, for the two outdoor things, the garden program at Bennington Elementary School. And this year we have a group of people who are going to be working with the folks at Molly Stark to clear out the trail that's in the back of the school property and hasn't really been functional for a couple of years. So again, just an update and help spread the word.
Can I just ask one question? This makes a good point. So for the field trip, and this can go to you, Laura, is if people sign up for the field trip, they have to do the background check form. And when they come here and pick up the form here.
Yes, right at the, yes, and the human
And I know
resource.
there is
department
a,
does that.
If you need these to be notarized, can they do that here as well? Or they have to go to the town of Bennington?
We have notaries here on site,
Okay,
so yes.
just to make it easier for the people who don't know.
Right, yeah, well, and that's part of
Yeah.
what we'll help with too,
Yep.
is with these meetings, we'll coordinate with people about how they get onto the list of volunteers and approved, and connecting the teachers with the various day trippers.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks. Any other public comments? Please.
My name is Lauren. I'm not sure if I'm at the correct board meeting to bring this up, but I had an issue with one of my children. I have 5 children within the school system, 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 2 at Shaftesbury Elementary. I had an incident over at the middle school this week with my daughter. She was found in a bathroom and with another student, with another young girl, and they were accused of vaping in the bathroom. My issue is not that my daughter was searched. My issue is how that was done at the middle school. She was brought into one of the principal's offices with the door closed, asked to remove her shoes, empty her pockets, hold her arms out and circle. Sorry, I'm a little emotional about it.
So Laura, so this is the elementary
This is
board.
I know,
So,
but I guess my
Yes.
issue is
Mhm.
that I was told that there are no policies within the school system.
Okay.
Of how a child should be searched. And I can't believe that that's true.
yeah, so there are, and I can, what I'll do is, what I'd like to do is to give you a reference number for the policy. And then what I maybe ask you to do is maybe leave your contact information for Assistant
Yeah.
Superintendent Boudreau, who I would ask to follow up.
Yep.
Only because of this board, as the elementary board, this board
I
doesn't have any
understand.
authority.
I understand.
Let me, I'm gonna pull that
I
up for you right
apologize, I
now.
can't
No, not at all.
remember one and-
Okay, let me pull those up. Right.
Policy should be across.
Across the
Yep.
district,
Yep.
it is. And
Yep.
in conversation, I was told there is none. Anyways, Thank you.
5085 is the policy.
I'm gonna give you this, okay?
Oh, thank you.
That's
Policy, policies, and they're listed by thousands, so it'd be
Yeah.
50, so it's the
Yeah.
5,000, we find this policy.
Okay. Knowledge is power. Yes, I agree.
Thank you for coming, Laura.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So we'll carry on while Assistant Superintendent Boudreaux is managing, is helping Laura. No one else is here for public comment, so we're gonna move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. So the consent agenda was published. It includes retirement, a resignation, 3 nominations, and a field trip, in addition to 2 sets of minutes. And first and foremost, I would like to know if anyone has any questions about the field trip.
I love field trips, so I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that there is a field trip, because we don't get to see a lot of them. And I know that about a year ago or so, that we had updated the field trip policy, and we haven't updated the procedures. So I feel like that is going to be coming up sometime soon, but I can't confirm that without Assistant Superintendent.
So are you specifically talking, Sandy, about the admin regs that associate?
Yes.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, the admin regs. This one I found interesting that they chose it to be the week after vacation. So go teachers, whatever. So that's it's just a great opportunity for them. I still don't know enough about this particular. I would hope that Shaftesbury would have shared with us a little bit about that trip after their first or second time. So I think this might be their 3rd trip going. So I feel comfortable that they are comfortable with this trip. I don't know how far away Salisbury is, but they are bringing it to us. It is an overnight trip, which they would need to. And we didn't see and I don't know if we typically do anyway, we didn't see the form that gets submitted.
It's in the packet.
Oh, I missed it. Oh, thanks.
I think you'll find the number of chaperones will be to your liking.
That's exactly where I go. That's exactly where I go.
The 80-mile round trip to Salisbury, which is about between Brandon and Middlebury, right up south.
Is it?
Yep.
Perfect.
2 hours.
That's great.
Instruction.
Yeah. Lovely. And there isn't any dissection?
No.
There was in the other one, not key weight, but the other one,
Yes.
because that's a different policy. So,
I think the only thing I'd ask, like these policies, but I do notice there's a gap, it's like, it's been just a couple of years ago, is, it looks like it was submitted on the 1st of
1/11.
January, and it takes, February, March, 2 months to be signed by, central office, which, for planning purposes, I think for families would be.
I do know that's a pretty hefty 2 months. The February in particular, as we're prepping for
Yeah.
budgets and town meeting, that's a significant period.
but maybe that's something to consider as part of the admin regs. And I share that because as one who has done long distance end of the year field trips, they take a whole lot more planning because you have to coordinate a larger bus, a coach bus, and they get booked.
Sure.
So I guess that would be a second question is that something that we could consider? Is that something that we could add as part of admin regs at some point? And I'm sorry that our superintendent didn't get to hear that.
That's okay. I wonder if anyone can guess what I'm going to ask the policy.
Oh, so-
So there are other elements to the consent agenda. I want to give anyone else has any questions or thoughts about those before we move to accept the consent agenda.
And I think there's that one resignation, or retirement. She's been there for 4 years, I believe, so.
Thank you. All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as published, please. Thank you. Thanks, Christophe. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion about the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as published, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And it carries. Thank you. That moves to, so operations, agenda item 5, there are no updates. Agenda item 6, finance. We have a treasurer's report, which I think was posted this morning, as I recall. I think I've looked at the right one. And it says action required, but typically we only take note of the treasurer's report. But 6B, we have a donation that would like to be made to Bennington Elementary School. What the that. I'll read the letter from the principal of Benel. It says, this letter is to inform you that the Bennington Elementary School received a money donation check for $500 from the Vanguard Group, care of Bruce Learman. So we do need to formally accept this. So I would entertain a motion to accept this $500 donation to Benel.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Danny Christel. Great. Any discussion on this?
Is that a gentleman that had children who attended? Is it?
He donates every year.
Every year, we have money that comes from that fund.
I don't know the story behind it, but it's very nice of them, and I appreciate it.
It's extremely generous.
Great. So thanks very much. So I don't know if we took a vote, so we'll do one now. All those in favor of accepting the $500 donation, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, carries. Great. Thank you so much. Again, there was no policy committee meeting last month. And that brings to a principal's report.
Next month.
Okay, it is next month. So next month we can expect to hear from Principal Cawley from Monument Elementary, which is great. That brings us to the chair report, which is me.
Are you skipping me?
Yes. I didn't, but I did. Yep. What are we gonna get for bringing it started? Yep. Assistant Superintendent Boudreaux, please, the floor is yours.
He's so eager. Oh, but thank you. So I'm here tonight in partnership with Director of Finance, Renee Gordon, and annually we update you about grants, because this is grant season. We also had to time it. This is a big year for us because we are also required to update all of our continuous improvement plans this year. And the state has been mentoring us. And I am proud to say, I am so proud of our schools and our principals and the community that's come together to give feedback, to follow the process that's been provided to us. And we will be also sharing that with you. So we are trying to juggle these two very important presentations to share with you. So if you have, and I would say this is a quick presentation that we are giving to you tonight because there's some things that we wanted to make sure you had up front. And if you have questions, Renee and I will come back. Okay? So this is one where we had some things, information we needed to give you up front. We're also going to display it. And we also did not print in color, but you'll notice on the screen that there's going to be a few things in red that you might just want to make a notation. Thanks. All right, so as a reminder, you finish budget season and you go right into grant season. And that was some of the work that we did with our principals today. And so as a reminder, this will be, I think, the last time you will see this in our presentation. We start with what is left of ESSER 3, which is part of the American Rescue Plan, ARP ESSER. We also have a small pocket of ARP homeless money that we've had access to. I will tell you that that has been used to support transportation for students to make sure that we can keep them in their school of origin, to support resources they need, phone cards for our unaccompanied youth that are housed at the secondary level. And we have been in conversations with the Bike Hub and we have learned about some programs where you can purchase like a group of bikes and use bikes as a form of transportation with students. And so I'm excited to say we've had some community members that have engaged us in that little pocket of money for that purpose. The only update we have for ESSER 3 is in red up here. I know if you have something in front of you, it's in black and white, so you can just make a notation. Under access to professional learning and materials, the one little piece we're using with the small pocket of money that we have left is technology. And that is for, I'm gonna, the names of the boards.
these boards here, the
Yes.
touch panels.
So because we have updated primary resources at the elementary level, we also need technology to support those resources. So during budget season, one of the things that many of the principals realized that the teachers needed in their classroom to support the implementation of reading and math was updated boards to access the platforms that go along with the math and ELA. So we were able, Renee and I were able to identify some last little bits of money, which actually helped your budget, because we were able to take that out of your budget and be able to use this, and it aligned with the criteria. And then the last piece in red, I'll let you explain, Renee.
And it's really just a clarification and an update, because all along, we have been paying for our engineering services for the HVAC optimization projects out of the ESSER money. But I just wanted to clarify it on these sheets that it's not just the construction, but it's also covering the engineering of those systems as well.
So as a reminder for ESSER, everything else, there's nothing new compared to what we shared last year, other than these little areas in red. And again, we are on target to have this money expire, and we're super proud of. We've spent every last dollar, and so we wanted to share that piece. So title season is just getting underway. And the first step this year was we may not access this money unless all of our schools in our district have updated continuous improvement plans. And that is a tight rule right now, and that makes sense because you want to know why you're spending the money. As a reminder, we receive as a district Title I, which is all about improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. Title II, which is about supporting effective instruction. And Title IV, which is student support and academic enrichment. And that, again, I like to remind people, is that funny pocket of money, which is supports well-rounded education, safe and healthy schools, and technology. But they prefer us not using it to buy actual devices, more platforms and professional learning. We actually have noticed a huge shift. The investments that titles getting a little bit more restricted in terms of allowing us to buy materials with this money. They prefer us to see it used for the implementation, like with the human beings, we have like interventionists and coaches, professional learning, and trainings. So those are just some little overviews. We're showing you what our allocation was for this particular year. And then as a reminder, all of our schools in our district, all 10 schools meet the threshold for school-wide designation. So that allows us to access typically more funding. And so we like to give you a breakout compared to last year. And the one thing we want to point out is you'll notice it says Woodford Hollow Elementary, 100% low income. But that's because, and I'm going to turn this back part over to Renee, because we have a little asterisk at the bottom.
So for the past several years, the SU has been participating in the community eligibility provision, which basically feeds all of the students for free, breakfast, lunch, and through the supper program as well. But so CEP is what we refer to it as. With that program, we're no longer able to collect free and reduced lunch forms, which a lot of folks used to see years ago. Instead, we have to collect household income forms. And the Agency of Education has actually accessed some other departments throughout the state to identify families that are below the poverty level. So essentially with that, and not all of our schools are CEP, you actually take what the percentage of low income families are for each of the schools, and that gets multiplied by a factor of 1.6. So because of that factoring, the 1.6 multiplier, that's why several of our schools end up at that 100% low income level. It's not because every single family is, it's because of the CEP designation.
Yeah, and that's really important for us to share with you. And if you look back and think about as we move from year to year, some of our new learning this year, and I'll hold on this. Actually, can you go not that way yet? Go back up just for a minute, Renee. Yep, right there. We were alerted, right now our title money is, we still have not received our allocation for next year. And our state representatives have just notified us that they're still waiting on the federal government, and there's a lot happening at the federal level, so we're in waiting. But we've learned, we were provided more education this year about how Vermont, and every state is, that first round of each state receiving the money is linked to census data. And 3 years out, yes, they go back 3 years. So our next year's allocation for the state of Vermont is going to be based on census data from 3 years ago. And that was new for us to learn. So they were sharing with us to help us understand a little bit more, and I want to share that with all of you. So some other, so you can get a sense of how each school is using then the money that is allotted to them through school-wide. And then we also have some district title investments that are accessed by all of the elementary schools. Title I supports tutoring services. We're always very thankful for our partnership with the Tutorial Center, which helps to support that work, focused on ELA and math. And then I just continue to be inspired by our art and music teachers who are constantly advocating for opportunities to support parent engagement, to through the arts. So we're thankful for that. And then the list of different district coaches that were available. And you'll notice Lisa Holderness. We have 2 new names up there. We have had such great need for behavior and social emotional learning that we added a second social emotional behavior coach through Title IV. And that's Valerie Hope. So she now partners with Jessa Ordway, and they're a great team. And then we also have a 0.5 SVSU STEAM coach, Lisa Holderness. And again, part of Title IV is that we have to do community conversations, community collaborations. We work closely with the Bennington Workforce and Ed committee that provides feedback through this lens. So that's a little bit of overview around title funding, and that's what the principals, today we had a meeting and today we looked at this. And we're just starting to plan for, and I'm having them think about, what are your continuous improvement plan goals? Think about the budget that was just passed. What are your goals that you're thinking about for grant funding? So as soon as we get that allotment, we can start to plan. So the next grant is IDEAB. And this is funding through the Individuals with Disabilities Act to support the provision for services for learners with identified disabilities. And again, you can see what our annual allotment or allocation was this year. And again, IDEAB, there's not a lot of changes this year compared to last year. This grant typically funds human beings that are supporting children. And the Student Support Services Office works closely with our Director of Finance, Renee Gordon, to secure these positions. So just to give you some examples, and then you can also see that we have professional learning in there as well, and some software to support learning. And then our last 2 buckets are linked to Medicaid. And this was information that was shared. It was requested by the boards during the SVSU board during budget season. So if you sit on the SVSU board, you've already seen this because you asked to see this during budget season. The first bucket is Medicaid rolling reimbursements. And so we have Medicaid clerks throughout we have 3 in our district that are documenting. And so as a result of the work of their documentation of services being provided, we have a rolling reimbursement. And so this gives you a sense of how that rolling money is used. I will tell you it is very heavy in the work of our audiologist. It is the sound systems in classrooms right now is amazing. I was at Molly Stark a good chunk of the day yesterday, and it reduces a barrier. So a child is struggling with hearing, it really just takes that away. So it just makes it levels the playing field. So it's been very heavy. You'll notice our Medicaid funding right now and the work of the audiologists. And nurses are super proud that they've been This is the first year where they've really felt since the pandemic good about the hearing and vision screenings. We have a health and wellness leadership meeting, and so again, being able to access funding and support to do that. The last bucket of Medicaid money, which comes through the Department of Health, but actually works in a very similar way. The Department of Health, it falls under the Department of Health, and we partner with them. We are required every year to have a MAC grant, or Medicaid Administrative Claiming Annual Reinvestment Plan meeting, and stakeholders can come and sit, and many of our health and wellness staff come and sit, and we brainstorm how to designate the money that we've received. And the way that this money, we get this money is called a moment in time. So Kathy Zimianik, who's a counselor in Shasberry, will be sitting at her computer, and she'll get an email that says, this is your moment in time. And she needs to sit right down relative to that period of time and document what she's doing. And so we have people that are designated around the district to receive these emails randomly. And we encourage them to do it. And I always follow up because I can find out, because this is how we get our money. And then we get this pocket of money. And so it also gives you a sense of, and again, this was again asked for during budget season, of how the money is kind of distributed and the impact shared with SVUESD. So our goal tonight was, again, to provide you a little bit of information about the grant work that's happening, knowing that we're starting grant season now. We also, I like to say to the community and anybody that's watching, that we are always open to any feedback or ideas that you might have as part of just a community collaboration. And you can reach out to me, Laura Boudreau. I'm the assistant superintendent. My email is lboudreau@svsu.org. You can call Central Office 802-447-7501 and share your ideas. And we're thankful for all the support. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for either Assistant Superintendent Boudreau or for Director Gordon?
I have one on the school-wide investments on behalf of the SVSU ESD, specifically trauma mental health professional. They're provided for Monument and Shaftesbury, but no other schools. Is there a
Oh, yeah.
rationale for that?
You're looking at title, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So just like I just shared that we do, I kept my way outside, meaningful consultation with the community. I also do the same thing with principals, and we look at their data and assess what their needs might be. So principals, so this is a human being that sits, that we have a contract with this community resource, and he can meet with teams. He can possibly help an individual child based on data. So it's all based on data, and they can advocate. Sometimes the school that might have an investment that looks like this might be a school that might not have a full-time clinician on staff, whereas another school might have one. And so we're consulting for services for a short period of time, but that's so I will tell you, Glenn, you have it is happening in the other buildings. I would like to
I can
assure
imagine
you.
that it didn't,
Yeah.
and, I've been
Yeah.
firsthand witness to it,
Yeah.
but just looking at this, it can't be asked.
Yeah, no, it definitely is sometimes, and so I'm gonna be a little bit global right now. Principal might, when they might see, they have data to show, and right now, Safe and Healthy Schools goal number 2, all schools have one, it's about to expire. And so if they have data to show that they have a population, experiencing, that have experienced trauma and need some kind of mental health support, and they don't have access to another resource, title is a funding source. But I feel confident that, we can support all of these schools if a need arises, whether the person's already our site or we send someone to support them.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Very good answer.
Yes, I was gonna say too, that this is just one of the funding sources
Yeah.
supporting that one particular contract. We have them in other buildings through other funding sources and many other funding sources supporting even more people.
And we're
So,
Yeah.
And that brings me to the next section, the IDEA, because it's an SVSU. I was wondering if some of those funding pieces ended up in our elementary schools and how is it, whether it's based on need or whether it's based on numbers or percentages, and how that's allocated.
Yeah, so IDEA-B is definitely more linked to IEP services. And so you want to, that's why it's not totally broken out, because as you know, it could be one goal in an IEP with one adult attached. So these human beings are going in a lot of different directions. But Sandy, that's a great question that I could take a deeper dive and get you an answer, because I think it's a great question of how, because of what I hear you saying is I'd like to know more about how they impact the elementary schools.
Yes, and I didn't know if that was part of the reason why the trauma and mental health went to maybe a bigger percentage to Shakespeare Monument, and maybe the bigger need was someplace else in another funding.
Yeah. We, yeah, so Renee kind of hit upon it. We have a lot of funding that supports social emotional behavior work, and especially trauma, and it comes in different buckets. This is one, I would say the examples you see for Gasparian Monument is that's how we're funding that need. We're using title money to fund that need. And then we can give you an example of what it looks like in other settings where some of the elementary schools have a full-time clinician all day on site. And that's their work. And then we also have contracts with outside providers like United Counseling Service that could be an additional resource. I'm not gonna, because I don't have that exact, but I'm gonna write down the question because I think I love that question. So we'll come back and give you more information about it.
If I can add, like the beauty of using the IDEA funding is that it's fluid, right? So it's covering the whole SU. They're not restricted to a certain grade span. Whereas if we're using our local money,
Right.
we have them kind of in silos where we have money dedicated for SVUESD student services, and then Mount Anthony student services and Arlington student services, versus using this funding source. Anybody can go anywhere based on the needs.
This
of
also
the
helps,
students.
with, remembering when budget season rolls around next year, where these monies come from, where they flow to, just a general understanding.
So is some of this money being funded down to beach streeters? Now, South
So
Bend?
for the on-point intervention, so again, it is definitely, we have lots of buckets, so different, it's funny, we'll sit in a meeting, we'll have a need, and we're looking at where the different resources can come from, and they often come from different threads. So the beauty is we're trying to weave resources together. So whereas this trauma expert, and the resources follow the child. So here's the other thing I would say, resources follow the child. And then there are resources that are designated. So I want to kind of formalize, I have some questions that I'm going to restate that I want to, because I think these are great questions, especially for as you think about budget planning. So I heard, can we take a deeper dive into IDEA-B to see the impact at the SVUESD level? And then can we also talk a little bit more about how resources move and shift to support the interventions that we have to support students? Are some like in place and that's where they stay, or do they move? Hopefully based on student need. Yeah, I'll write those down.
Watch the video.
Is there any efficacy data that comes along with that in the end to assess it?
Say it one more time.
Efficacy data in the end that comes along to assess, needs of, are they being best spends, best practice?
Absolutely. So I will give and again, I think this is a great conversation, which I'll bring these questions back, is how do we collect data? So I'm thinking about the on-point intervention itself. We just, as they wrap around, maybe a student that needs support, data collection is a big piece of it, because the goal is whenever a child enters any kind of intervention, the goal is to have success and then shift resources. And we should, do that based on data. And so I think, yes, and if you're talking about a child that might have an individualized education plan, that's a tight plan with with set measurements that should be progress monitored and being collected, so you know what the next step needs to be.
Just a point to mention, I'm well aware this district collects a lot of data. I didn't mean to infer that.
Oh,
you're
not at all.
I just wondered about, you
Yeah.
know, efficacy and analyzation after the fact.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and
Just
when
so
we, yeah, well, when we write these investments, so it's specifically, you know, when a big piece of writing the continuous improvement plan goals is having that last part. How are you gonna measure it to know that your goal is working? And so we've spent a year really working with, you know, school leaders about what that's gonna look like and what is your data collection process gonna look like? And an expectation now of title is that you have to have a school-wide specific goal every year with the data collection piece and all of our investments. As we start to write them this year, we'll have a piece like, how are you gonna know it's working? How do you know it's gonna working? So we know that our investment was working,
Yep.
yeah. And so your questions are good too for the larger audience, because this is great.
That's, you know, stuff if you're not in the educational milieu, you may
Yeah.
not necessarily have an understanding.
Yeah. I think the one thing what I think is hard for Renee and I is, and you said it, Glenn, a minute ago, budget season happens before grant season. So we can kind of give you a prediction. Budget season's over now,
Yeah.
but this is grant season right now, so it's kind of backwards, but we're trying to, it's good to remember if you want something to come back around, but I like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else for Assistant Superintendent Boudreau or Director Gordon? Okay, that brings us to chair, now it brings us to chair report. So just a couple quick notes, noting the time. First of all, thanks for electing me as chair again. I'll take that as a vote of confidence and not a statement that nobody else wants the job. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. Want to say thank you to all the community members who voted in favor of the SVUESD budget, as well as all the school budgets. Certainly, I'll speak personally, a disappointment that the Spinelli Field bond did not pass, particularly anticipating that most of our SVUESD students will at some point potentially have to come to do something on that field as it stands right now, and it's a mess. And it would be a wonderful investment for our students moving forward. My take on things, but still, thank you very much for passing this budget and allowing us to move forward and supporting our schools and our learners and our teachers and our staff. Excuse me, with teachers and staff in mind. One of the things that I've been doing for this board is sitting on the teacher negotiation committee, which also included support staff. For those of you who may not remember, last year I sat on the support staff negotiating committee, and we negotiated just a quick one-year contract because we knew the support staff was coming to be negotiating with the teachers as well. So that's what we've been undertaking for the last several months. We were able to finally nail down and come to agreements on a contract that happened Wednesday. It's good. One of the things that we were able to accomplish was what I think is a very well-deserved raise for our staff and teachers. When we look at comparative salaries for our staff, for our employees, compared to just a little bit north and a little bit south and a little bit west, we need to become more competitive, and we've taken better steps toward that. So Director Gordon, I think I have this correct. It's 10% for 2 years plus step. 9, thank you. See, I'm glad I asked. 9% plus step for the next 2 years. So great. Again,
9%
per year. Yes. 9% this year, 9% with step. Yep. There was some conversation about making adjustments to the calendar. One thing that I did not quite have a handle on were the different ways that different schools have been affected by the merger of the larger district, bringing in Sandgate and Arlington. So that learned that Southwest Tech has its own requirements about instructional time versus the instructional time that's required for the high school and elementary schools versus what is in place slightly up north. One of the things that came out of that is an agreement to form a calendar committee to figure out how all the schools and all the learners can get exactly what they need and still be in compliance with state law and Board of Ed rules and regulations. And then one of the things that we spent the most time talking about over the last few years is school safety and staff safety and student safety. We were able to come to agreement on language regarding school and staff safety, that I think will fit the bill, will suit the need. Included in that is an agreement to create a school safety committee. There had been an ad hoc school safety committee about a year and a half ago, 13 months, 15 months ago, that came together with some recommendations that were acted upon. So it was a fruitful committee. I'm sure many of us have experiences on being unfruitful committees, but this was not one of them. This was a committee that actually came up with some good stuff. So a continuation of that committee has also been agreed to moving forward. So I think some very good things came out of negotiations. Very pleased with all of those. And it was quite the experience. It was not something that I had done yet sitting on this board. So I'm glad it's over, but I'm also glad what we came up with. Because I know school safety is a thing that this board has discussed over time. In part, it's what led to us expanding the campus safety officer, I'll call it program that was already in place in middle school and high schools. When we look at this, I'm going to fudge the numbers a little bit. 2 years ago, there were, I think, 53 employees dedicated to supporting students, student behavior, student safety, student wellness, all in support of increasing school safety and student learning. And that number has increased, I think, 206 employees. It's been a massive growth over the last 2 years. Lots of money has been spent bringing human beings into the buildings to help support our students, with one of the goals being an increase in school safety. With that, there's still room for improvement. So one of the things I'm going to be asking the superintendent to do is to be giving this board regular updates, looking directly at the SWIS data, looking at what those student safety incidents are in our schools, and allowing us to take a look at them, but also helping us to better understand what resources are available in dealing with student behavior. Certainly, students are entitled to education, and they have lots of entitlements. There are lots of rules and regulations that govern those entitlements. There also needs to be room for discipline in schools, and the way those two things come together sometimes has been surprising to me, and I'd be willing to bet that not every member of this board is actually fully up to speed with that. So one of the things we can look forward to seeing on our agendas that's the plural, on our agenda are executive sessions, so that we can be discussing those school safety incidents as they happen. Yeah, Glenn.
Would there be a board role for someone to participate on the safety committees, whether altogether or in per building?
Yeah, I would like there to be. I don't think we formalized. Yeah, I don't think we formalized the membership of the safety committee in the contract. There was just the agreement to have it. I think absolutely there ought to be room for representation from each of the boards, at least this board. I'll speak for this board. Okay. Representation from this board on that school safety committee. Again, it's during one of the nights of negotiations, we heard testimony, I'll call it, from teachers and from some parents about experiences they've had. I think in previous years, I think in recent years, again, there's not only the increase in staffing, there's the different leadership in some of our buildings. I think the picture looks different now than it did 2 or 3 years ago. It would be a shame if I also didn't note the effect of Bennington Cares. I think helping to increase the positive vibes at our schools for sure. So I think things look different now than they have looked in recent years, but again, there's still room for improvement. And I think we as a board really need to be paying attention to that, because clearly it's on the minds of our teachers and on the minds of lots of our parents as well. So those are some of the things that I think we can anticipate for the year to come. Very pleased with what we're doing as a board and what we're going to continue to do. And the last thing I think is that folks should please be in contact with interested people in Howell, Woodford, and at Shaftesbury who might be interested in serving on this board for a year's term. It would only be for a year. They don't have to run for anything, and sometimes that's appealing to folks. There's someone who also contacted me from Shaftesbury who's willing to serve, so it may very well be the same person, Jeff. It may not be. But I would ask that folks get those names to me soon so that I can also do some outreach and that we can come to our April meeting prepared to make some decisions. I think that's it for that. Any questions for me or any other thoughts that we should share before we move to close? Okay, great. So our last agenda item is an FYI, is the budget status report that was published. And then there's a policy that we've just been asked to take a look at, 5140. I don't quite know if the policy committee is going to be taking action on that soon, but it's there, so we'll take a look at it. So we've exhausted our published agenda, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Glenn. Do we have a second on that?
No, great sticker.
Okay. I think you have just made that a second. So any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you.